Okay. Hey everyone, it's right at the top of the hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for coming to the webinar today. And in case you need reminding, we're going to talk about chargebacks. As you're coming in, I would love to know, one, of course, where you're watching from. And if you could, while you have the chat window open and as you're coming in, I would love to know one thing that you hope to learn from today's session.
How to beat chargebacks.
Yes, and flex those chargeback muscles.
That's right.
All right. Okay. I'm seeing a couple of chats come in. San Francisco, watching from Georgia, Illinois, North Dakota, Huntersville, North Carolina. That's where I used to live. Just north of Charlotte. I see somebody, Martha, is in Charlotte. Okay, great. We have, and looking to learn how to find the paperwork needed to fight chargebacks, of course. New York, Maryland, California, Clayton, North Carolina. We are from coast to coast. I love it. All right. Well, cool. The chat we know is working. We know people are coming in. I have a couple of quick housekeeping items before I completely turn the session over to Matt. One, as you can tell, and I've said it a handful of times, the chat is open. Please engage with it. We will be keeping an eye on it throughout the session, and we have moderators behind the scenes who are keeping an eye on chat too. If you have a specific question that you have for Matt as he's going through his slides, you can use the Q&A in Zoom to ask that specific question. There is a chance that he might pull one of those questions as he's going along. If not, we're going to hit all of those with about 10 minutes left. So 10 till 2 Eastern. So make sure that you're using that Q&A if you have any specific questions that you want Matt to answer. And then lastly, this webinar is being recorded. So if for whatever reason you miss something as we're going along, we'll share that recording within 48 hours. So you'll have that at your disposal. So without further ado, I want to bring on Matt and introduce you to our presenter today. Matt is the founder and lead attorney of Gym Lawyers. They are a legal consulting firm that help gyms, and youth activity center owners manage the legal side of their business. Matt is also a CrossFit gym owner, and he really understands the ins and outs that come with managing businesses like you all do, and the legal implications and risk that come with owning the types of businesses that Jackrabbit users do. He is no stranger to webinars at Jackrabbit, and we are very fortunate to have him come and speak frequently about things like chargebacks, agreements, and other legal matters. So Matt, welcome. You ready to get into it today?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and give you control of the screen. I'm going to hop backstage, and then at 10 till, I will be out to go through some Q&A.
Okay, hold on. Before you jump out, let's just make sure my screen shares properly here. Okay.
You're looking good.
We're good? All right. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. For those of you on the West Coast, we're still bright and early, right? It's like 10 a.m., still finishing my coffee. For those of you who are over on the East Coast and anywhere in between, hope you're enjoying or had a good lunch. So as Molly mentioned, my name is Matthew Becker, lead attorney here at Gym Lawyers PLLC. Just as we get into this, because I'm an attorney, I always have to give the legal disclaimer that I'm not your attorney, and even though I've seen some names in the chat that I recognize, you can't take what I'm about to say here as legal advice. Every situation is different. Every chargeback situation is going to be different. Even if we cover a topic sort of a little off topic, maybe at the Q&A in the end, or I kind of go off on a tangent somewhere, your facts are going to be different than the hypotheticals we're going to talk about. So if something sounds very familiar, or if you want to follow up afterwards, I suggest you do so with us or somebody as a local attorney that you trust, so that we can address your specific situation. All right, we're going to talk about chargebacks, the whole topic of today. Two things that we're going to focus primarily on. We're going to break this into two pieces. First is going to be preventing chargebacks and why prevention is the key, and then fighting chargebacks and some of the limitations that we have when we go to fight chargebacks. And so I saw a question pop in really quickly there right before we kicked this thing off. Somebody asked sort of like they want to understand, like, after we put all this documentation together and we send it over to the credit card company, like, how do we position ourselves to be a little bit better at being able to fight these things? And kind of touch base on that as we go, but just sort of like an overarching theme here. Just remember, like, as much of a pain in the butt as these things are, it is not in the credit card industry's interest to award back on the gym owner's side. Okay. The consumer, the one who is ranking up all the credit card debt, is the one who's paying all the interest to the credit card companies. And so that's how the credit card companies make a lot of their money. And it's not in their interest then to tick off that consumer who's then going to go and take it out a different credit card. So unfortunately, until we see some like massive change in federal law, until the Fair Trade Commission or the Federal Trade Commission comes down and like tries to limit these in some way, I predict it's just going to get worse and worse. And that's why we're hosting webinars like this, is try to make it easier for gym owners to avoid and potentially beat them as we go. So if you are here to learn how you're going to win a chargeback, unfortunately, you're putting your focus in the wrong spot. So winning chargebacks, as I just said, are really difficult. And so the name of the game is really avoiding the chargeback to begin with, just preventing it. And that's what part one of our lecture and the majority of our lecture is going to focus on, is how do we even prevent these things? Because once we get hit with one, it's a chance. We have a better chance of keeping the money if we avoid it altogether. And another thing just to keep in mind is we have three different types of electronic payments we can take: credit cards, debit cards, and ACH transactions. Now, a lot of gyms that we work with like ACH because there's no fees associated with it. And so when we're running like a lot of big $1,000 fees, $1,500 fees, or tuition payments, we don't want to pay those fees on top of it. So we try to run everything through ACH, and that way we don't pay those fees. Well, the problem is you'd never get a chance to beat an ACH transaction. That's pulling money straight out of somebody's bank account, and banks are very paranoid about fraud when it comes to ACH transactions. So, if you're running a lot of ACH, you're seeing a lot of chargebacks, and you're here to think, how on earth do I beat these things? You will never beat an ACH. So take that into consideration when you're thinking about what's sort of the cost benefit analysis here on taking payments versus with credits and debits and paying some fees versus running all through transaction ACH, and we just end up in a situation where you can't beat it. Part one, let's prevent chargebacks. Okay. Why prevention matters. There are two common causes, predominant common causes when it comes to chargebacks. One is taking that final payment, taking that penalty, taking that early termination fee, taking that quitter's fee, call it whatever you want, but it's essentially a final payment that we try to take off of the client, off of the member, off of the parent, because they canceled and we're mad at them for canceling. Sometimes we'll see things like in the micro gym, the functional fitness industry, they'll say, well, you owe us a 30-day notice of termination. You owe us a 15-day notice of termination. And if you give me any less than that, I'm going to take a final payment, because a final payment falls within that cancellation window, right? It's kind of like I'm penalizing you. Or we see it in cheerleading a lot with competition teams, and they say, if you quit early, we're going to hit you with a $500 quitter's fee. We see that a little bit sometimes in gymnastics as well. And so it's like this final payment that you're trying to get off of the member, and the member doesn't agree with it. And we'll talk about authorization as we go. So they issue a chargeback and they pull that final payment back. The other area that we see a lot of chargebacks is for prolonged absences. And where we'll see this is like, okay, I pay for my kid to come and I'm paying on a monthly basis. And let's just say I'm paying $100 a month. My kid comes the first 2 months, but then my kid stops coming and I'm not paying any attention. So I continue to pay for month 3, 4, 5. Month 6, I see that payment come out on my credit card, and now all of a sudden I think, oh, wait a second, I didn't want to pay for that anymore. I forgot to tell them 4 months ago. I've just been paying for it for the past 6 months. Give me my money back because we weren't using the service. And so these are the two areas that we're going to talk primarily about, like, how do we prevent this stuff? How do we maybe adjust some of our operating procedures in an effort to avoid the chargeback? Okay, one of the ways we can do this is picking your payment processor. Little promotion for Jackrabbit Pay, since we're here on a Jackrabbit seminar. This was a launch from Jackrabbit as an internal payment processing. And so they also help you with gathering your evidence and sort of putting together your case file, if you will, to submit it over to the credit card company if, despite all of this, you suffer from a chargeback. So some of the features here includes proactive chargeback assistance and increases the success rates in a dispute. So they are, since this has been implemented and they've been handling more and more chargebacks, they are seeing that they're getting a higher success rate because it's internal. It helps them be able to pull all of that data into one area and not necessarily leaving it up to you as the owner to organize all of this and try to submit it to the credit card company on your own. The next step that we can do is we can look at membership agreements. You could call these tuition agreements, membership contracts, membership agreements, payment policies, terms and conditions. It doesn't matter. This is your written agreement between you and the client, or you and the parent, that says, basically, every month we're going to charge you on some auto recurring payment. Maybe it's on the 1st of the month, maybe it's on the 5th of the month. Here's how you cancel. Here's how you freeze or hold or pause if you allow your members to do that, if they're going on vacation or they want to pause for a month. And then we have additional language in there that we can put, like authorization language. That's a key. Anytime we're trying to fight a chargeback is, were we authorized to take that payment? So we'll put authorization language in the membership agreement. We'll put chargeback protection language in the membership agreement. A lot of franchise gyms are starting to do this now, where they're literally taking language that says, I will not issue a chargeback. And if I do, and the gym can support that it was authorized, the gym reserves the right to fine the client $500 in an effort to have to fight that chargeback. Now, whether or not that holds up, it's still out on debate, but it at least gives that client that language in there that says, do not issue a chargeback because here's the negative ramification. And we're hoping to see that it starts to have some sort of a chilling effect on the clients for trying to issue those chargebacks. So a couple of key factors here. We need to be very clear and easy to understand. Whenever we're drafting a membership agreement for a gym, I try to take the tactic of, what is the common questions that a client, a parent is going to have regarding their membership? And have we covered that in this membership agreement so that we don't leave a lot of gray area? Probably the most common is going to be, how do I cancel? Okay, is that listed right in there very clearly for the client or the parent to follow? We have to make sure that the membership agreement is compliant with state and federal laws. Credit card companies know about this stuff. And so if you're in a state, which the state has a Health Club Act, and the Health Club Act has specific statutory language that must be in a membership agreement, and your state applies the Health Club Act to your industry, then you have to have that language within your membership agreement. Because if you don't, and you're trying to waive this terms and conditions in front of a credit card company to say, look, I have a contract, they agree to pay, and it's not compliant with your local or federal laws, the contract is void. And so you don't actually have any evidence to be waiving in front of the credit card company in order to demand your payment back. Federal laws are becoming increasingly impactful on these things as well. If you missed it back in October, the FTC released a rule that talked about this click to cancel. And it's not a law yet. It may come into law in January, or I'm sorry, in June-ish of 2025. And where it's going to impact a lot of gyms, mainly is where gyms allow online signups. Okay. And so they can just go to the website, they go straight through your parent portal, they use Jackrabbit, they fill it out, and then they can sign up and their kid can start attending class the following day or the following week. But then the gym has some sort of an elongated advanced cancellation process outside of just then allowing them to use the same parent portal in order to cancel. Um, so again, we're going to have to make sure that the processes to register are the same or as easy as the processes are to cancel. And do we outline that in our membership agreement to make sure that the agreement is compliant with federal law? Again, I mentioned earlier, we have to authorize these payments. Do we have what's called an FTC disclosure in the membership agreement, which is federal language authorizing you to process the payment on a recurring basis, to process fees if the payments are late or canceled, or if the credit card changes. We need to get this language in the membership agreement so that ideally the parents are reading it. Jackrabbit at least allows you to break these things into individual policies, forcing the parents to then click acknowledgements on each one of these so that we can then print that out, send it out and say, look, they at least acknowledged that they read all of these things. Always make sure that your membership agreement is up to date. Perhaps on a yearly basis, if not more frequent than that, you should be pulling and auditing your membership agreement to make sure it actually applies. I can count, probably can't count on one or two hands the number of times that we're rewriting a membership agreement for a gym and we're asking various questions and they'll say, oh, you know what? I actually don't remember what our policy is on that. Or I think our policy is XYZ, but let me go look it up. And they do, and it's completely wrong in what they're remembering. So we need to review these things regularly. Always make sure that it gets signed and acknowledged. Again, that's another one of those things that just sort of like comes up that's still a little bit surprising to me every so often, that we'll get the client will call and we'll say, this happens a lot with like competition teams, your all-star teams or your regional competition teams. And they'll say, hey, parent hasn't been paying for like 4 months, to which my first question is, why is the kid still attending? But that's a policy thing. They haven't paid for 4 months. They now want to quit, and I want them to pay, to like bring it up to date. I want them to pay for those 4 months they didn't pay for. And I say, great, let's see your signed agreement. And they say, well, that's the problem, because somehow they snuck through the cracks and we never got anything signed from them. Well, you don't get to fight it then, because you need a signed contract. Call it whatever it is. It's a contract that says you actually get to authorize and take these payments. And then, we mentioned earlier long cancellation policies. Again, not so much in the industries that we typically see who use Jackrabbit. Usually you guys are pretty good at like, tell me by the 5th of the month and we'll cancel it by the first of the next, or the 25th and we'll cancel it by the 1st, or just let me know a day ahead of time or something like that. And I think we're going to see more and more industries swinging that way as the chargebacks get worse, as the FTC starts to get more laws put in place to try to protect consumers from these auto recurring subscription type services, that these 15-day, 30-day, 7-day, 10-day notice requirements are going to start to shorten up to being essentially like, just tell me before my next payment and you're good to go. A really quick, just sort of low-hanging fruit is do not combine your membership agreement and your liability waiver. Those need to be two separate and distinct policies, groups within Jackrabbit if you're using Jackrabbit. All too often we see payment policies, check, check, check. Okay, I'm agreeing to all of that. And then in the same, we see all of the waiver policies, great, check, check, check. And then the parent or legal guardian is then signing, typing the name on behalf of the child. We can't do that. It's too much. It's too much confusion. We're making it too difficult for the consumer to say, well, I didn't really understand what I was signing. Make your membership agreement over here, check the policies, type the name. Bring up your waiver, check the policies, type your name, make them two separate and distinct documents. All right, another one is making sure your credit cards on file are up to date. We kind of take this for advantage a little bit. I did when I was a gym owner, in that, just because a credit card expires doesn't always mean they'll stop payment. Some payment processors can continue to take payments even after that credit card is expired. Well, the problem is if you do a chargeback on an expired credit card, you're going to lose because you don't have an updated card on file. So Jackrabbit allows you to run a report, and here's a sample of one of the reports that you can run through Jackrabbit to see who are the expired or expiring credit cards, like who just expired last month, who's going to expire this month. And then you yourself or one of your staff members can be more proactive to reach out to these clients to determine or to say, hey, your credit card's going to expire. Will you please go in there? Either give me a new one right now and I can just update it. That'd be best. Don't leave it up to them. Or please go into your parent portal and update your credit card. And then you can stay on them about it. Stay informed on absences. I mentioned that one of the prominent ways or prominent reasons that we see chargebacks is we get to that point where the parent has continuously paying and the kid isn't attending. And so then all of a sudden the parent tries to pull a chargeback because the kid hasn't been attending and they want their money back because they haven't been paying attention. Well, we can stay on top of our members a little bit more. Again, a little bit change of a process probably, but in the long run is hopefully going to be more beneficial. We run another report here where we can just pull a report of who hasn't been here in the last week, who hasn't been here in the last 2 weeks, who hasn't been here in the last month. We can start to reach out to those parents and say, hey, your kid hasn't been coming. I was asked once, are you point blank telling gym owners that they should actively be canceling memberships for people who aren't attending? As a gym owner, I'm going to say no. Okay. I'll put my gym owner hat on for a second. I'll say no. There were plenty of times that people would continue to pay and not come. And I didn't see it as my duty to reach out and tell them, I'm going to turn off your credit card if you don't start coming. From the legal perspective, from the topic of this webinar perspective, it may be in your best interest. If you see a client who's only come for 2 months, and despite you trying to reach out, they haven't come for 2 months, and you can finally get a hold of that parent, it may be beneficial to just say, hey, you know what? You guys haven't been coming. It's all good. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off your next payment. And the parent is probably going to focus on that and go, oh, that's really nice of you. Thanks. Hang up the phone. You're done. You kept those 2 months worth of payment versus getting another 2 months in. Parent realizes it without you reaching out and issues a chargeback on all 4. So just things to consider, but mainly what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reach out to the parents and say, I know you guys haven't been coming. Is there anything we can do to help you come? Is there any other services we can offer? Is there anything else we can do to help you get in the door? Maybe the parent just is ticked off about a coach or something and wants to vent about that, and they won't actively reach out and talk to anybody about it. But now that you, the owner or your general manager, or we sometimes call like a client success manager, is reaching out, they're a little bit more inclined to go, oh, you know what? Now that you called, like, here's a situation, we can resolve it. Okay. And we can keep that client around. Meeting regularly with parents. Okay. This was another, if you're with like a business consulting company like Next Generation of Gym Owners, they'll sometimes recommend these things, just checking in like every quarter, every 3 months with parents, just to make sure that what you are providing is satisfying their problem. Okay, that why they're there, their issue, what they want to get out of the gym. And this can then allow you as the gym owner to assess the problem, if there is one, if you agree that there is a problem, and take more active steps in order to fix the problem, to keep the parent, keep the kid around, besides just letting it escalate to the point where the parent is now so frustrated that they're just pulling their kid, and they're mad because they've missed classes. They haven't been coming because they've been felt comfortable coming. And again, now they're issuing that chargeback. Okay. Hop it into part 2, fighting chargebacks. So we've gone through some ways of preventing it. Remember, the name of the game of chargebacks is preventing it from happening, because once we get to this point, good luck. Okay. Some gym owners are very successful. Some gym owners have never beaten one. Some gym owners about 50-50. I suffered 2 as a gym owner. I won 1. I lost the other one. So, what do we do when we're trying to fight, right? The name of the game with fighting a chargeback is authorization. The bank is going to question, were you authorized to take the payment? So that's where we walk into problems with like quitters fees. We would look at that and we'll say, well, yeah, we were authorized. It says right here in the contract, we are authorized to take that payment. And the credit card company is going to look at that and say, well, they didn't get to use the service. This is just a penalty. They're going to deny that they want to pay this. And even if they're paying like that last month, they're not going to continue to use it. And so therefore they're paying for a service that they don't get to use. So a couple of ways we work around this is we'll say in the contract, like we'll take your final payment and you can continue to come for a final month if you want to. Okay. They authorize the payment because we're going to put language in there that says, if I give less than their notice requirement, I authorize them to process one final payment, and I understand that the gym will be available for me to use through my final payment period. Okay, that can help. But the credit card companies also know that if you go and try to enforce this in a court of law, and it's one of these where it's a penalty fee or it's a fee, and then you cut them off and they can't utilize the service after they've paid the fee, courts are going to be hesitant to award that stuff because courts don't like to make people pay for things that they don't get to use or pay things that are penalties. Plus, just the pain in the butt of going to court over something like this. I can talk about that more in the Q&A section if you'd like. But again, credit card companies know that these things are going to be hard for you to fight outside of this. So you really need to be able to demonstrate authorization to take a payment. And then the next part of this is we need to know what evidence you have that supports the payment. Okay. All right. Evidence. Let's talk about some of the things that we can use. Your first line of defense here, and this is the stuff that Jackrabbit Pay can help you guys put together if you're utilizing the service. Print your membership agreement. Again, hopefully it is clear, concise, it's up to date. You've just brought it out. Parents are acknowledging it. Separate from your waiver, we've got this nice, shiny membership agreement with all of the policies and then the typed name at the end with the signature from the parent. We need strong legal language in there. So things like EFT disclosures, authorizations, prevention of chargeback language, making it very clear when the payment will be processed and how much it's going to be processed for. What are the cancellation policies? Okay, just making sure that that stuff is more than just a list of, I acknowledge that my payment will be on the first of the month. I acknowledge that I have to cancel. I acknowledge blah, 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 blah. We need more legal language in there. Okay. And making sure that we've got a spot for the parent to either sign it electronically, if you use that kind of a service, with their finger, or typing their name, acknowledging the terms of the agreement. And then as we were just kind of diving into there, any other way you can demonstrate authorization for payment through your membership agreement terms. Some of the ways that we can show authorization to take payment is through those absentee reports. So earlier, we talked about using the absentee reports to look up, well, whenever clients haven't been here, and so therefore we can start to reach out to those clients and talk to them about, hey, what's it going to take to get you back into the gym? What's it going to take to bring you back to class? Okay, what's wrong with your kid? Why haven't they been attending, et cetera, et cetera, okay? But another way that we can use these attendance reports is if we have that instance where the parent is just mad and now they're going to try to charge back all 6 months, even though their kid came for 2 months, pull the attendance report and demonstrate to the credit card company that they've been coming for these 2 months. Sure, I may lose the other 4 because they weren't coming, but you can't give them all 6 because here's our 2 months that they were actually here utilizing the service. Is the fight worth it? And this is sort of a cost benefit analysis that really comes in from a business perspective. So, the question is like, how much are they charging back? How much of your time is going to go into this? What is your effective hourly rate? Is the loss of this really going to be that significant? Or are we just ticked off, right? Are we just like, sure, I don't want to lose $200, right? I don't want to lose $150 or $500, but how much of my time am I going to put into this one client in an effort to try to get that money back. We really go into this again with, are we going to sue our clients? So, okay, they charge back $500. Man, I'm ticked off about that $500. I'm going to fight the chargeback. So I'm going to spend an hour or two getting all this information together, submitting it over to the credit card company, paying an additional fee to fight, and then I'm going to wait. And maybe a couple of months from now, the credit card company is going to issue a response. And let's say they deny it. Okay, well, what are my next options? I either tuck my tail and I go back to running my gym, or I now decide to pursue this person. I'm going to take them to court. I'm going to call a collection agency. Well, a collection agency can go after them. They'll use all of your materials, and they'll go after, and let's assume they collect the $500. Collection agency is going to pull a percentage of that and give you the remainder. So yeah, you're going to get some money back, but again, how much time and effort have you spent trying to go after this versus, again, that effective hourly rate for you of like, what if your hour was spent doing something else to build your gym? Or you go and you hire an attorney and you say, well, I'm not going to, I don't want to share my fee with a collections company. So I'm going to go hire a local attorney to take this person to small claims court and try to get their money back. Okay, well, you're going to have to pay an attorney to do that. And the attorney, again, is either going to take a percentage like they will from like the collection agency, or they're going to charge a flat rate. It's probably going to be more than $500 to go and appear in court on your behalf. Some states, because you are a corporation or an LLC, will require you to have an attorney. Other states will allow you to go on your own. So that's sort of, local law type of stuff. And you can go spend a day in court trying to get your money back. And you're going to have to convince a judge, as we've already talked about, like why you deserve this money. In certain circumstances, I agree, a judge would agree with you and say, yeah, okay, they signed an agreement. You offered the service, you gave them the service, they should have to pay for it. Versus, I get that they signed an agreement, but what's this $500 quitter's fee really going to do other than punish the person for quitting? And they're going to be more hesitant to award something like that. I mean, it doesn't happen. But ultimately, the question you're going to have to ask is like, is this the type of gym you want to be? Do you want to be known in your community as the person who goes after your clients for their money? That's an individual question. We meet with gym owners on both sides of the fence. I think both sides of the argument are legit. It's just a personal preference. Is that the kind of gym you want to be known as? Maybe it is. And it only takes two to get that reputation, and now people stop fighting you on it. That could be a positive scenario. All right. So let's kind of close this down. Let's open it up for some questions, because I see that there are a few questions coming in, and I don't want to get running too long here so that I don't get an opportunity to answer some questions. But again, focus on prevention, not just on fighting the chargeback. Once we get to the fighting the chargeback stage, I would suggest there's a issue within your processes that got you there that we should be focusing on, not necessarily fighting that chargeback. Consider how you're processing payments, maintain clear and update agreements. Again, a little promotion for Jackrabbit Pay, because they're getting success on these if the gym owner actually does suffer from a chargeback. It is a tool. Jackrabbit Pay is a tool that can help prevent. There's all those reports we went through that can help you guys prevent the chargebacks. And then if you do happen to suffer from a chargeback, Jackrabbit Pay will help you get all that evidence put together and present it over to the credit card company to increase your chances of actually beating one of these things. If not, you're just sort of left on your own. But all of these reports you can print out, all of the membership agreements that are signed that you can print out, any kind of authorization language, any history, any conversations that you have with the client that indicate that they authorize you to take that payment, those are all key pieces of evidence that you can submit over to the credit card company. All right. Talking and just as a, if you want an opportunity to reach out to us, this is my contact information. Again, we're going to open this up to Q&A, but if you want more assistance and looking at different ways in order to prevent, go ahead and reach out. That's my email. You can call my cell. I know it says like call us. Honestly, I'm just going to ask you to schedule an appointment with me, because like before this, I was in a meeting. After this, I'm on another client call. So it's hard to cold call me and catch me. You're welcome to text me. And again, you can go to the website, fill out our contact form, and it'll kick you right over into scheduling a 45-minute call with me. All right. I see Molly hopped back in here.
Of course. I heard your
And
call for questions a couple times, so I came running.
well, thank you. You want to moderate them? I'm just going to move my camera
Sure.
up here. There we go.
Yes, I do have one question that I see from Jennifer. Often we have parent A register, but credit card is in parent B's name. Should I have both parents sign the agreement? If so, is there a way to get both signatures on Jackrabbit? Go ahead and answer that first question, and we have a moderator on that could speak to the second one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a couple different ways we can address that. If they're two different last names, like the one spouse did not take the other spouse's last name, then I would recommend getting the last name to be the same. If that means we're using the same, like I'm using my credit card versus I'm using my spouse's credit card because she has a different last name, perhaps. Yes, try to use the credit card that has the same parent's last name. We could then also, if that's like a regular occurrence or just something you see on a regular basis, you could just put a little term within your payment policies, your membership agreement that says, by using the credit card, the person signing, is acknowledging that I have permission and authorization to use this credit card. As far as having both pay, I'm booting that one over to Jackrabbit. But yes, that would work if you do have the ability to do that.
Excellent. Okay, this isn't a question, but something was shared in chat, and I think it was just shared behind the stage. Someone had shared just a success that we recently won a chargeback due to our agreements being up to date and signed by the parent, and our huge pile of evidence supporting that charge and all of the email paper trail we gave to the parent regarding their late payments. And it was all because of the amazing Jackrabbit tools that we've put into play. So I just wanted to shout out that win because it's fantastic, and I can feel their relief through the computer.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. All right. I do have a couple of specific questions related to policies and customizable policies within Jackrabbit. Brianna and Teresa, I see that. I've asked Haley to put a link to our client success checkup call. It's a completely free checkup call that you can schedule with our client success team. They are so much more equipped to look at how you have policies set up, look at the current policies you have in place, and make recommendations based on how you can, differently store those policies or get them signed. So I'm not going to answer those questions because I know I will answer them wrong. We have the support team that can help you answer those in a checkup call. Let me check to see if I have anything else in Q&A. I'm not seeing anything, Matt. I think you did a fantastic job at hitting on everything as you were hopping from section to section. We can hang out just for a couple more seconds, and I'll keep an eye on chat. Do you want to pull back up your screen again with your contact information just so people can take maybe take a screenshot of it? We want to get you all the business that we can.
Sure. No, thank you. Let me grab that. And if people are hanging on here, I'm happy to just sort of open this up if people were like, "Ooh, we're going to get with an attorney on video." I can just open it up generally. If you guys have any, oh no, hold on. Sharing always takes me like 4 steps. If you guys just have any questions, a couple of questions generally, I'm welcome to just sort of address any questions. If you guys have a couple, it doesn't have to necessarily be related to chargebacks for the last couple of minutes here. Okay, is that back up, Molly?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
All right. Well, I'm looking for raised hands. Nothing. Thank you guys so much for joining. You
No,
got
thanks,
you got a
Josh.
shout out from Josh.
Thanks so much, Josh. That's so nice. That's so nice of you.
All
Thanks for
right.
coming.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, we are going to send out the recording of this so you can listen to everything again and again and again as you need to digest this over the next couple of days. We'll send that out in roughly 48 hours. So keep an eye on your inbox. And thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thanks, everybody.